Okay, welcome to the first illegal class of the new Zman, the new time. No yeshivas except for this one are in session, so that's why it's a little bit illegal here. It's like 2 days after the holidays. People are just trying to, recover. So, anyways, we're here today. Thank God. Before we start part 5, hopefully we'll close the series here about homosexuality and same-sex marriages, God willing. Before that, sometimes you see things like so clear, just like crystal clear, right in your face. Just like you can't believe, like I told you so, and you were right. Well, for the last 5 or 6 weeks, where I live, the area between Itamar, settlements of Itamar and Elon Moreh, and the Samaria and Shomron, there have been dozens and dozens of attacks. There's been rocks, there's been Molotov cocktails, all kinds of attacks. And, people continuously come up to the police, come up to the army, and they're saying, listen, what's flying here, that's, something has to be done here. Just to take us back a little bit, it used to be that the road from Itamar to Elon Moreh was a road that was only traveled, only Jews were allowed to travel. And then the army, the defense force, the people that are supposed to protect the people here, they opened the roads surrounding Elon Moreh and Itamar. So now, when you travel from Elon Moreh to Itamar,
that's official care.
What was that?
Right. That's official care.
Right. This is like, it's not original road. The original road went through went through the city of Shechem, and then they built a second bypass road. This is the third one. This is the third one already. So you have to sometimes like Hollywood stars, they're not sure exactly which marriage they're on, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have to remember, you think it's a bypass, but it's bye-bye. It's bye-bypass, or bye-bye-bypass. You have to keep it, you have to keep on the ball. Anyways, so now, when you travel, so you have traffic from the surrounding illegal Arab communities that are in the area illegally. So we're traveling with them, and of course it's clear that it's only a matter of time before Jews will either be injured or Jews will be killed. Just clear as day. But it doesn't stop the defense forces, the ones that are supposed to defend you. Remember those guys? It doesn't stop them from putting in danger thousands of Jews, children, women, men, etc. Okay, so anyways, this 2 days before holiday of Sukkot started, I was reading on the email, Elon Moreh's email, that there was going to be a demonstration at one of these intersections, which if you remember the last class that we had before with the break, I spoke about how my wife was, along with some of my grandchildren and my kids, they were Molotoved on that road between Elon Moreh and Itamar. Spoke about that. So now they were having at the intersection of an illegal Arab community called Beit Furik. There was supposed to be a demonstration and also a prayer service, afternoon mincha service. So I went there. And thank God. You really have to thank God that we were 25 people, not a lot, 25 people. And, you have to give credit where credit is due. I have not seen so many forces out there in force, pardon the pun. The forces were out there in force, and we had representatives from all areas. The police were there. 25 people blocking an intersection where there have been dozens and dozens of incidents, life-threatening incidents. We're out there. The police is out there in force. The border patrol is out there in force. Don't worry about it. The undercover police are out there undercoverly in force. The army is there in force. The riot, the Samech Mem. Samech Mem is one of the angels of the evil inclination, or otherwise known as the riot, the Israeli riot control police, Yassam, Samech Mem, the forces of impurity, of Tumah. They're in there in force. Well, you have to be impressed. Jews have been going for the last 6 weeks. We've been going down these roads. There's nobody there. But now, thank God, let's hear it for them. They're there. For what? Not to protect Jews, but to protect the Arabs so we don't block their intersection. And the story gets worse. So we start our prayers, and all of a sudden, maybe 2 or 3 minutes into the prayers, right? Prayers, just to get it, understand. We're in a certain prayer here that you're not allowed to move. Even if there's some kind of animal or snake or something at your foot, you don't move. And even if somebody happens to come by who's a very special person, a king or whatever, you don't move. Because right now you're literally in front of God. It's very strict laws. And we're in this prayer. Okay, we're in this prayer. And, it takes maybe about 7-8 minutes. And then you have the repetition, but we're 2 or 3 minutes into it. And all of a sudden, I pray with my eyes closed. Better that way. You don't see what's happening. So all of a sudden, before we go to bed, we sing the song, Mimini Michael Umismali Gabriel. To my right is the good angel Michael, and to the left is the good angel of Came Raphael, etc. So, in the middle, okay, something that they would not dare do to do in a mosque, to do to Arabs if they were in the middle of their prayers, buddy. This disgusting, the sickness of impurity, of Tumah, in the middle of people's Amidah prayers. They come and they start dragging people in the middle of the prayers. Once again, something they would never do. So imagine this scenario. All of a sudden, all the forces, the police, and the undercover, and the army, and the border patrol, and the riot, they're all there. For what? They're never there to protect the Jews. They're there to protect the Arabs, to make sure that the Arab cars, poor guys, can get by there. And so I was dragged, and I kept this happens to me a few times, so I'm kind of used to it. So I keep on, I'm in the middle of prayers, and I'm not going to stop. I don't care who's there. So I continue, I get back up, and my feet are still together. And then once again, more people, I'm not looking, so I can't tell you what color they were, what color uniforms were there. But these sicknesses, these haters of Israel that would never dare do such a thing to Muslim prayers or Christian prayers for that, but they have no problem against Jews, okay? That's a great sign of the Erev Rav. So once again, they come, they drag me out. And when I finished the prayers, I saw these people come by and say, listen, remember this event. Remember this. Remember what you did today. Because we're probably going to meet again under different circumstances. Under different circumstances. And you'll not be able to say, our hands did not have a share in the spill of the blood. Think about it. It's amazing. A few people came up to on the loudspeaker and told them this. It's just a matter of time. And they weren't joking. Because a few days later, on the same 500 meters from exactly where we were trying to demonstrate, to cry out, to protest, help. You're supposed to be defending the Jewish people. Where the hell are you? Who in the hell are you defending exactly? And sure enough, right at that spot, 500 meters away, less even, maybe 100 meters away, 100 meters away, right there, that's where a rabbi and his wife were murdered. A few days later, same place, 100 meters away. Think about that one. Think about that one for a while, for a long while. You know, many times it's kind of natural to lash out at the Arabs. Of course, they'll get their just due. You know, they're also, of course, going to get nailed and smashed. In fact, the Gra says something very interesting. The Gra says on his commentary on Shir HaShirim, he writes there that there are really 72 nations. 72? I always heard there were 70 nations, right? We just got finished with Sukkot. There's 70 nations. No. The Gra says there's 72. Who's the 71 in number 72? Well, fasten your seatbelt here. The answer to that is the 71 is the Esav, Yaakov's brother, and the 72nd nation is the brother of Yitzchak, and that's Ishmael. Those are 71 and 72. And the Gra goes on to say that both 71 and 72 will be totally destroyed. There will be no remnant of the continuation of Esav, and there will be no remnant to the continuation of Ishmael. The only remnant that there will be from the 70 nations, those that lower their heads and agree to be subservient to the Jewish people. Those that will throw away their idols, the foreign idols, those that will agree to be subservient to the Jewish people, those 70 nations, some of them will remain. But from the nations of Edom, which today is America, the continuation of Rome, and Ishmael, they will be wiped out. But with that said, they will get their punishment. But with that said, let's get it clear and let's put the cards on the table. The people that are really responsible, and you know, for a while, many years ago, I would hear Rav Kahana after an incident like this. You know, in those days they weren't as bad as they are today, but still, you know, each incident is terrible. It's a world that was lost. But he would say that, you know, everybody that did not stand up and protest and say, they must go, rid ourselves of the Arabs, they must leave. Anyone that did not protest, anyone that did not stand up and put that on their icon, put that on their flag, is responsible for the death. And it used to be a little bit hard for me to digest that one. But as the years go by, he was so correct on this one. That, you know, we go out, we should really be protesting against the Jews. Those are the real villains here. Because there's so much that they could have done. Look at this situation. No one is on that road. There have been dozens. Try, open up your hearts, listen to this. This is such, in Yiddish they say ashanda. This is such a unbelievable story here. That for weeks and weeks, there's dozens of incidents where just by the grace of God, no one was killed. People were injured, yes, but no one was killed. And no one's on that road. I mean, like, ABC. Simple. Things that are simple, you know? I'm not talking about, okay, now we got to move the... Let's just, like, get real simple. You have a road here, and, you know, it's like 10 kilometers, Elon Moriti Tamar, and of those 10 kilometers, there's only a certain amount of maybe a kilometer where there's a problem. like, okay, let's maybe put those forces that were out in force against Jews, maybe they could have had a few men there. Amazing. So we have to know who the real villains are here, who are really responsible for allowing. Let me tell you a last thing before we get on here. It's an amazing, if I'm not mistaken, Shlah Kadosh. Shlah Kadosh writes, you know, when we as Casey and the Sunshine Band would say, shake your lulav. You know that song, Shake Your Lulav by Casey and the Sunshine Band? So, what exactly, like, people are like, shake, 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 shake your lulav. Like, what exactly are you supposed to think, Some people really get into it, they start like, whoa, they start getting, but what are we really supposed to think? So I saw an unbelievable commentary this past week. Listen to this, really amazing. Shlah HaKadosh writes that if you look at the four species, the etrog and the lulav, hadassim and aravot, if you look at all the four that we take on Sukkot, what are we looking at? We're basically looking at ourselves in the mirror. Because all of us have a little bit of lulav in us. All of us have a little bit of arava within us. All of us have a little bit of an etrog. All of us have a little bit of hadas. Now, some people have more etrog. Some people are 90% etrog. 5% hadas. But we're all looking basically at ourselves in the mirror. So, the 70 nations, where'd they come from? We all have within us, we all create 70 nations. That's what the Shlah HaKadosh says. And when we take the four species of Sukkot, we're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're shaking to the north, to the south, east, west, to up and down. We're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please stop. Please stop us from creating, giving strength to the 70 nations within ourselves, and of course, in turn, we give strength to those nations. What are keeping those nations going is our bad, evil deeds. We are keeping, I'm keeping, we're keeping them going. Because within us, we have all 70 nations. We're all like a UN, walking around UN soldiers, we kind of are. So we're asking Hashem to protect us from all areas, that we should not be influenced, and we will not give sustenance to the 70 nations within us, because part of the nations, there's something good to be learned out. For example, King David. It's said by King David that he was a tremendous warrior and he was a tremendous fighter. Where does that come from? Jews aren't allowed to fight because it's not the Jewish way, as we know. Jews don't fight. They're doctors. They're lawyers. You know what I'm saying? Jews don't fight. So how did King David, how did he become such a great fighter? You know how he became? Because he has blood from Moab. So because of that, he has the cruelty that comes from the nation of Moab. Moab is in your face, like, think about it. Moab is like really in your face, because they're called, Lot has relations with his daughter, and what's the name of the baby? You would think that you would hide the identity of the baby, because it's not so like pleasant, Well, here's my son, and here's the father. 1 second, that's your father. No, it's also my father, but it's also his. You don't want to really get into that situation. But she goes out and she calls him Moab. He's from my father. Isn't that great? It's like putting on a baseball cap, but instead of the C of the Cubs or the W of the White Sox, it says Moab on there. I'm from my father. It always reminds you of that. So they're in your face. They don't have any problem. They're just like cruel. It's like cruelty. So that's where David gets it from. So that's something positive, that a Jew has to take a certain amount. So we all have within us 70 nations. But we want to keep the good and get rid of the bad. So that's why we're shaking the lulav. That's one of the reasons why we're shaking. So the bottom line is that we give the Arabs, we give the Muslims, we give the Christians, we give them the strength to do what they're doing. By our bad deeds, by our bad thoughts, etc., we're giving them strength. We're building up them within us. We're becoming more like them. And in turn, that gives them strength and sustenance to continue against us. Okay. Going on here. A quick review. The last thing that we did a couple weeks ago was we quoted the famous ethic giant of about 200 years ago, the Saba of Kelm, the holy grandfather of the city of Kelm. He learned out tremendous things from the book of the prophet, the Judges. He learns out the following. I'm just going to summarize them. Number one, he writes out an amazing statement that the entire Torah stands on this portion that we discussed at length about what happened with this couple that went to the hilltop of Benjamin, and later on they asked for the male guest to be sent outside in order to have, God forbid, homosexual relations with them, and eventually they sent out his wife, so to speak, and she was raped, and eventually she passed away from the experience, from her wounds, etc. So the holy grandfather of Kelm, Saba Kelm, writes that the entire Torah stands on this specific Torah portion. So there's a lot to learn from here. Number two, although according to Jewish law, nobody in this incident should have been killed, which means that according to the Jewish law, no one would have been able to be found guilty here of death. No Jewish court would have been able to put these people of Benjamin to death what they did. I'm not going to get into the reasons why not. But according to the letter of law, they could not have been put to death. But the Saba of Kelm says that we know that the Torah allows us, there are many incidents throughout the Torah, throughout the Talmud, and throughout the generations where court systems, Jewish law courts, they did not go according to the letter of the law because there was a need to do something very, very severe. So even though people were not, according to the letter of law, they should not have been found guilty of death, people have been put to death in Jewish courts in order that the Jewish people should wake up and should understand that they better be careful and not participate in such transgressions. So in order to be a wake-up call, a Jewish court has jurisdiction to go against the laws, the halacha limitations of the Torah. And that's exactly what happened in this case. When the 11 tribes went to fight against Benjamin, even though according to the letter of the law they were not allowed to, there are many times where we are allowed to go out to fight and punish those that transgress various things, because something here was really, really out of character within the Jewish people. Something really stood out here and has to be taken care of, and we have to have fear put in the Jewish people. So that's why we're allowed to act. That's number two.
Question of the letter of the law versus spirit of the law.
Oh, there we go. Okay, number three. The Saba writes that there was a tremendous sanctification of God's name here. To think about how much money one spends on a war. Think about every bullet. I remember when I was in the army a long time ago, before I was tossed out, I remember they would always tell us, you You know how much this cost? This bullet cost? You know how much this grenade costs? Every grenade, you know how much this, it was in tanks, so missiles cost, etc. Whoa, it's like heavy money. Every single bullet, every single missile, etc. It's, to run a tank or to run a plane, it's like a lot of money. So the Jewish people were willing to, so to speak, put their money where their mouth was. And they sacrificed tremendous amounts of money to go and fight in a war. A war costs a lot of money. Number two, they were willing to sacrifice their time. Number three, they were willing to sacrifice their life. So what we say every morning and every evening, that we should love God with all our money, with all our heart, with all our soul. These people, these 11 tribes, they were able to observe this like you're supposed to. So there's a tremendous sanctification of God's name. And the Saba from Kelm is saying that, once again, this portion that we read is the foundation of the Torah here. It's the foundation of a Jew. Number 4. These 11 tribes were amazing. Even though thousands of them, 40,000 members of the 11 tribes were killed, they never once opened up their mouth to chastise God. They never had one bad word, no complaint, no ethical complaint against God. I mean, it's an amazing thing. We hear all the time, I mean, like, this couple that was murdered, Hashem should protect us. You hear, I mean, how could this be? Well, what's with their kids? How are their kids going to grow up? The kids have no parents. We have here in Tapuach, in the Holy Apple here, similar situation where the Kahanas, Rav Binyamin and his wife, Rebbe Tzentalia, Shem Yikom Damam, great righteous people, they were also killed. Kids grew up without any parents. Sometimes you want to just say, like, where is God? And these are two. Imagine 40,000 people, and you're doing a tremendous sanctification of God's name. That's what the Saba is writing. They're doing a tremendous job. They're trying to eliminate such impurity, such actions that should not come back again. We should not see these kinds of actions again. And not once do they open. They always say, it's our fault. There's something wrong with us. Amazing thing. Amazing thing. Did you imagine people that are responsible? We're going back to our point where we started off. People that are responsible for Oslo. Thousands of Jews no longer with us. Did any of them get up and apologize? Did any of them go to each family and say, listen, for the rest of my life, I think I'm going to come into your house for the rest of my life. I think I'm going to sit on the floor for the rest of my life because I'm responsible for the murder of thousands of Jews. Has anybody come? No, because they're politicians, man. Politician doesn't learn. They have a vocabulary. They speak a lot. But they don't have that word of, you know what? You're right. I was wrong. They don't have that. It's not in the vocabulary. So anyways, the last thing, the second to last thing that the Saba from Kelm writes is he quotes the Ramban with an N. The Ramban says there were 2 reasons why the 11 tribes were punished. Number 1, because the tribe of Benjamin, those people that participated in the actions, the tribe of Benjamin was responsible to do what the 11 tribes did to those perpetrators of the evil. They're responsible. It's kind of like parents, Who's responsible? Who's responsible for the kids? The parents are responsible for, if something's wrong with the kids, come up to the parents. Listen, I have a problem over here. So the tribe of Benjamin is responsible for the tribe, number 1, they're responsible for themselves. So this was a little bit out of their jurisdiction. According to the Ramban, they were punished because it was not their mitzvah. The mitzvah was in the hands of Binyamin.
But didn't the tribe of Benjamin supposed to turn them over? I think they asked them to turn them over.
No, for sure.
And they didn't turn
For
them
sure.
over.
Once again, I'm not getting into the response here. I'm just saying that the holy grandfather from Kelm, he says, he brings down the Ramban, that the one reason why they were punished was it was not their jurisdiction. It could be that they could have done more. I'm not sure exactly, because there's an obvious question, of course, that the Torah itself, the Mishnah teaches us when there's no, if you see it in a place where no one's standing up, you stand up. If you see, you're at a house and you see no one's helping clean up. Well, I'm just a guest myself. No, if you see no one standing up, you stand up, buddy, and you do it. You can't just sit there. So right, the Mishnah Avot. So once again, it could be here that they, that the Torah does tell us that they tried, but it could be that they could have maybe a little bit tried harder. Like Avis, we try harder? Maybe. Number 2, very interesting, was that they had, their second sin was kochi v'otzem yadi. We talk about this many, many times in our classes. This is our test in our days. And unfortunately, we fall many, many times. A person, on one hand, has a responsibility to go out and fight. On the other hand, he has to realize that, as the Psalms say, as King David writes, that if God will not fight for us, then we are out. We have no chance to be victorious. All our victories are only from Hashem. Hashem made it, so right at that second I turned around and all of a sudden I spotted that guy. Or I happened to be going by all of a sudden I was able to hit. It's all from Hashem. And it's a test. What are we going to say? Are we going to say it's Hashem? Or are we going to say it's the IDF? It's us. It's our strength, it's our wisdom, it's our keenness. That's the test in life. And that's, according to the Ramban, that was their second sin. They were so certain of themselves. Why? Because they had so many soldiers. And it was 11 tribes against 1. So they went in there, and God was not in the cards. Because we're 11 tribes and they're 1. So God was not in the cards. God's not in the cards, you're going to get hit. The last thing here, the point number 6 that we said last week, very interesting, that the Saba finishes off the following. We see in the time of the golden calf, when we see that when Moses comes down from Mount Sinai and he breaks the tablets, we see there that Moses calls out, whoever is with God, come join me. And his tribe, which was the tribe of the Levites, come and join. And the Saba says a tremendous thing. If you look at the verse Moses calls out to the Jewish people, to his tribe, and says, okay, right now I want you to take your weapons and I want you to be ready to act against family members if need be. Family members. Even though we know that the tribe of the Levites did not participate in the sin of the golden calf, but we know that there were so-called intermarriage, which means tribes married with other tribes. So there could be that there were people that the wife was from the tribe of Levi, the Levites, and the husband was from a different tribe. So even though they're really considered to be the tribe of the husband, there's still a part of them that's part of the Levites. So why does the Torah teach us this? And the Saba from Kelm says a tremendous Torah. That only those that are willing to go out and fight against their own relatives, this is the only sign to show us that it's for the sake of God. If a person is not willing to go against his family members, it means that he's not 100% with God. Because I'm not going to go out and hurt my family members, then what's more important to God than God is your family members. So Moses was saying only those that are willing to fight against family members, those people will go out to fight against the Jewish people that sinned in the calf. only those kinds of people. Person that has limitations, who's I'm willing to go fight against people I don't know, but if it's come to family members, I'm not going to blow them away. That person is not honest. He's not an honest worshiper of God. So therefore, he was not invited to participate. So we see here a person's intentions are very, very important. You have two people. One person has intentions of sanctifying God's name, and another person who does the same act, he has all kinds of other intentions. Okay? So you'll have the same two people. One will be sitting, in paradise, and the other is sitting somewhere else, because his intentions were very, very different than the first person's. So it's very important here we see a person's intentions. What was a person's intentions? Sometimes people do things in order to make a name for themselves, in order to get on TV. We keep getting richer, but we can't get our picture on the cover of the Rolling Stone, So some people are out there to get their picture on the cover of the Rolling Stone. So they do a lot of things which look on the outside to be great things, but they're really looking for publicity. So they go out and they get arrested or whatever, but it's not for the sake of heaven. So you got to be careful on that. Okay, so that was the class number 4. Now we're moving on over here. Rabbeinu Yonah, in his classic work on it's called Shari Tshuva, the Gates of Repentance, in the third gate number 3, chapter 3, and the paragraph 59. Listen to what he writes here. He says that if a person does not go out and on the offensive, and he does not protest against those that are not doing good things, he will be punished. Okay, he will be punished along with those people that are perpetuating the evil. So once again, you have Rabbeinu Yonah. One of the principles of a person repenting to God, to coming closer to God, because that's what his book is all about. The great Rabbeinu Yonah, who is also one of the great ethical forefathers of his generation, he's telling us something very clear, that you have to stand up and against, and continue standing up against those perpetrators of evil. And if you keep quiet, if you keep your head down, you're going to be punished along with them. And then, listen, very interesting, Rabbeinu Yonah says the following. He quotes the prophet Hosea. The prophet Hosea says the following. The prophet Hosea looks at his generation, and he says, you know what? I see that my generation, Hosea, the prophet, is talking to his generation. I see that you're not in the same league as the generation of the incident where the couple went to the hilltop of Benjamin, and that whole incident turned out. My generation, the prophet said, you're not like them, because they went out and they fought when they saw some evil act that took place. And even though it wasn't everybody, and it was only a small minority, they went out, they spent money, as we said before, all what we talked about today. So I see that in my times, we are not at the same level as they are. Because in my generation, says the prophet Hosea, I see that we take it sitting down, we take down all these abominations, okay? All these abominations, we take it sitting down. We don't protest against them. So therefore, that's how he looked. When he had to find an example, a sample generation, he looks back at the time of the judges, and he finds that time where the 11 tribes went out against the tribe of Benjamin to fight. That is the pedestal of a generation. Okay. Moving right along here. An amazing Ralbag. Ralbag is a commentator on the Torah, And at the end of each chapter, he has various lessons to be learned from the chapter. Well, he summarizes, what do we learn? Because we know that the Torah is not a history book. Torah is not a memorial book. Torah is to teach us today what to do. So he gives us 20 or so at the end of every chapter, or every subject. He gives us lessons to be learned. And
when did he live? Sorry.
Rabbi, if I'm not mistaken, some like 400 or 500 years ago. Not 100% certain, but somewhere. Okay, so the Ralbag, he has at the end of the chapter 22 in the book of the Judges, Parakaf Bet. Listen to what he says. The lesson number 10 to be learned is the following. When there will be, God forbid, a situation where one must decide what to choose. For example, if there is someone, an individual or a group, that is threatening us, and they're demanding to turn over a man or a woman for homosexual relations, it is Torah law that one should rather hand over a woman even if she's married. I'm glad everyone's sitting down here.
Why not fight?
Listen again closely. The Ralbag is saying, lesson number 10 in this chapter is to understand, is to try to understand what was going on in the minds of the people in the house, right? Let's move it back. There's a house. There's an older man that lives in this house, and he's offering to give over his daughter. And then there's these two guests, this couple that are looking for a place before the Holy Sabbath to spend the Sabbath. And they come to the Jewish community on the hilltop of Benjamin. So we have two men and two women in this house. And the house is surrounded, and they knock on the door, and the men are demanding to send out the male guest to have homosexual relations. And then what happens? What's the response? The man that lives there, the older man who lives there, is saying, hey guys, not that. Anything but that, okay? I'm willing to, here's my daughter. What's behind his action? Why did he choose that? And at the same level, we have the guest. Eventually, he tells the guy that lives there, no. You know what I'm saying? This is your house. I'm just the guest here. It's because of me you're getting in trouble here. He sends out his partner. What's going on? So the Ralbag is telling us, tremendous lesson, that the Torah, Jewish law, looks so severe at these homosexual relations that it is better. It's not a good situation at all. There are many commentators. There's Jewish law that says that should have fought to the end. They should have fought to the end. You don't give over people for sinning, especially not that kind of sin. They should have fought. But I'm not getting into that right now. But if you're in a situation where you've lifted up the surrender white flag, the Ralbag tells us, and what we see happened, that it is better to hand over even a woman who happens to be married, where the 10 Commandments say you're not allowed to have relations with a married woman. It's a serious, it's a death sentence for somebody that does it. But that's better than to give over a male or a female for homosexual relations. That's the lesson that's learned by the Ralbag. Tremendous lesson. Okay. Moving right along, we have the famous Chafetz Chaim. Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir from Radin, Kagan, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, passed away in 1933. He has a tremendous lesson for all of us. Tremendous, really, lesson. We're starting to get in a little bit into what happened in the parade in Jerusalem, where a very special person, happened to know him, named Yishai Schlissel, went out to the parade in Jerusalem. It was a gay parade in Jerusalem, middle of Jerusalem, and he went out and attacked some of the marchers at that parade. So we've started today to talk a lot about intentions, where two people could do the same deed. One will be punished and one will be rewarded. How come? Same deed. Depends. It's very, very important who that person is. You know, think about it. If someone came up to you, and somebody you respected, and they said, you know what, I think you're doing this wrong, you'd listen to them because someone you respect. If someone you don't respect come up to them, they tell you the same thing, you're just gonna, you're just gonna flip them off because who are you? Who are you to tell me? So it's very, very important. We're starting now to see where was the person at? Where was he holding, so to speak, when the action? Listen to this. This is written in one of the books by the Chafetz Chaim. It's called Shmirat HaLashon, Guarding Your Tongue. It's in a special chapter called Shara Tvuna. It's in the 17th chapter. And the headline of the chapter is that God will punish those that punish others if they themselves are lacking in the same field. Once again, let's say I come up to somebody and say, listen, you shouldn't really smoke. But I myself smoke, God forbid. Okay, so why in the world are you telling this guy not to smoke where you yourself smoke? So it doesn't work like that. So that's the headline of this chapter. Listen to what the Chafetz Chaim writes. A person has to, listen to his words, a person has to engrave on their soul the words of, there's a book, it's called Sefer Mitzvot Ktanot, a book called that expands on the 613 commandments. He writes there in paragraph 283, in the name of a rabbi called the Riva, that even when you're in a situation where there is a commandment to go out and kill somebody, for example, when is there a commandment to go out and kill somebody? Listen to his example. Amazing. For example, he says, let's say there's a male that's chasing another male in order to have homosexual relations. There's a mitzvah, if you see that, to kill the person that's chasing after the guy. Mitzvah to kill him. Or there's a girl, a woman, a girl that is engaged, and somebody's running after her in order to rape her. You're commanded to go out and kill that person. Okay, so he brings these two cases. He says that such a person that did the right thing and killed that person, he better be very careful. Why? Because if, God forbid, the person that killed the perpetrators of those actions will sin in the same field, which means that this guy, he's going out to try to save somebody because there's an immodest act that's about to happen. But if the person himself is immodest, if the guy himself or the girl himself participates in immodest activities, so who the hell are you to go ahead and kill this person? You're just as bad as they are. So therefore, okay, they will be punished. They will be punished. Listen to this. As if you have killed an innocent person. One second here. Boom, 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 boom. Amazing thing. This guy is going after this girl, an engaged girl, to rape her. And if you have the same kind of problems, immodest behavior, immodest sexual behavior, you have killed an innocent person. Innocent person? You've killed an innocent person. Where do we learn this from? We learn from the Torah. Listen to this, an amazing thing. And my proof, says the Chafetz Chaim, is the following. We learn it from Yehu. Yehu was punished because of the fact that he killed out the descendants of the king Achav. And even though God sent him, even though he was sent by a prophet of God to do it, because of the fact that Yehu later on had the same problem of idol worshipping himself, he was punished. So listen to this. Even though Yehu did a tremendous favor for the Jewish people by eliminating the evil king and his descendants in his house of Achav, who was a tremendously wicked man, even though he did a tremendous favor to the Jewish people, and he was Hashem rewarded him for this. He received he received a reward that for the next 4 generations, which is not easy, next 4 generations, his children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren would continue to be monarchs, to be kings. Now think about it, because it was very rare that even your son would continue. So this is 4 generations. I mean, even the abomination, you only get 3. I think you get 3 shots or something. 2 shots. I don't remember. 2 or 3 shots. 2 shots. Yeah. 2 is enough. Okay. So, anyways, because of the fact that Yehu had the same sort of problem. Once again, it wasn't as extreme, of course, as the household of Achav. But if you have a connection to this, who are you to go out and to do such an action? So therefore, he was punished. Therefore, he was punished. And it says, God tells him that I will come against you, and you will pay for the blood of the people that you killed. Even though he was commanded by a prophet to do that. Even though he did a great thing for the Jewish people, it's considered to be because of the fact that he had the same kind of sin on his hands. It was if he killed innocent people, and therefore he had to pay the price for it. I'm not going to get into it now, but it's to see where the Talmud learns this out. The Chavetz Chaim brings this down in the tractate of Yevamot, 105, the second side. 105. It's